Okay, we are live. Hello, my name is Colin, and welcome to episode 18 of Roll by Roll's Tavern Talk, a show where we, the Roll by Roll gang, discuss various aspects of running a great D&D campaign based on our experiences with D&D 5e and our current adventures in Emathan homebrew campaign. So joining me tonight are the rest of the Roll by Roll crew. So we have Barry, who plays Nightingale and Landis.
Hey, everybody.
We have Egan, who plays Douglin and Lafferty. And he does have a voice.
Yeah.
And we, and we have Max, who plays Kogon.
Howdy.
Welcome, everybody.
Nice to be back. It's been a while.
It
It
has
is
been
great to be
It has been a bit, yes. So last Saturday's Adventures in Emathan session was our first session in over 8 months, which is a very long time between sessions. Certainly more than enough time to forget what was going on and who was involved. So with that in mind, we thought tonight we would discuss what we did to get ready to jump back into the Adventures in Emathan story. And as a bit of a bonus, we talk about what we did to scratch the D&D itch during that time. Um,
You
so
don't still have that restraining order. You can keep me out of the hobby shop.
That's one of my topics. I'll tell you guys how to get around it. Yeah,
I'll tell you to get that thrown out of court.
yeah. The disguised self, let's just say inspired. Anyway,
All right. Well, Barry, why don't you? I'd like to start this off. We'll actually get into what we were doing for the last 18 months to scratch the D&D itch. So why don't you start us off?
Well, for myself, luckily during, the last 9 months, there was always the OGL and what the hell Wizards of the Coast will do stupid next. So that was always interesting to watch people's reaction online about all the kind of stuff that was going on there. But, personally for me to scratch the itch, luckily we have a group where all of us can DM. So, Egan and Max and I got together. We played a couple sessions of a campaign I started. Was Haven City of Deception. I'd always wanted to DM a city campaign, so the guys were willing to let me give a go at that. So we did that for a while. But I check out YouTube channels. A couple of the ones I find interesting and entertaining are the Pickled Dragon. It's this guy and a girl get drunk and talk about D&D, and it's pretty hilarious when they start going really off the rocker. And I always check out World Anvil, world building on YouTube. It's a great channel if you're a DM for tips on world building and how to keep it organized and things like that. And Instagram, I check out lots of feeds on there. Kobold Press, I'm interested to see what they'll be coming out since, they've got, I think it's their own RPG releasing pretty shortly. So that was going to be interesting. Dungeon Dudes are always really interesting. And I always get a kick out of a guy. It's D&D Shorts. He's got a
yeah.
beard, but oh my God, man, he cracks me up. He's got some really great content. And yeah, that's how I've been scratching the itch. I live vicariously through everybody else when I can't get guys around to play D&D with.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be a recurring theme for all of us. Max, how about you?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I played in Barry's thing there, and I just think that's a good tip in general. I think if you know there's going to be a big break, like your main DM, like if you have a situation similar to ours, it's a good opportunity to just kind of like rotate your players and just try like one shots and stuff like that and have fun. It's low stakes and it keeps the group cohesiveness.
Yeah.
Um, but as far as myself personally, I've been a long time reader of the Angry GM, so it's a good source for non BS, straight to the point. He's got a very particular style, but it is comedic if you can not take it personally, which you shouldn't because it's just he's writing to nobody.
It's
But
not meant to be against
yeah,
anyone.
but it's very good, and it's definitely his website and his articles have definitely been my guiding light as far as my GM journey. And then over the summer, I ordered the second edition of Fantasy Age. It's called. It's another TTRPG game engine, and I just wanted to take a look at something new and get some other perspectives. And so I've been learning that and reading through it, and maybe I'll run one of that
Nice.
some point soon and try something else out and just yeah. So
It's a good thing we're not like a group of them old gatekeepers. You would have been sacrilegious there playing any other game than Dungeons and Dragons.
I mean, just because hey, I love Dungeons and Dragons. Just play other games doesn't mean you don't like something else.
Yeah.
You know, it's just,
Yeah.
it's always good, and it's just a good way to get perspective. And even some things you take your experiences and you can add them to the different things, right? So
Yeah, there's a lot of really cool game dynamics and systems out there.
yeah. So if I go back to D&D and maybe borrow something that was really cool from that, you know what I mean, and it might work well. So who knows? But yeah,
Yeah.
fun. That's what I did though.
Awesome. Egan,
Yeah.
yourself?
Well, technically we were on a break, so it's not
You were
cheating.
seeing other
What are you
people?
I was seeing other people. 8+ months is a lot of weekends, and yes, we did one shots, and Barry ran City of Haven, which was a lot of fun.
Yep.
But time for all of us was in short supply to prep. Again, a tip of the hat. DMing is a lot of work, man, and we don't know how you do it consistently. So I think we truly need to appreciate that, because that segues to what I tried to do to kind of scratch that itch, if you will. I did look for other groups to play with, and they're out there. There's a whole bunch of free ones. Reddit, Fantasy Grounds has a message board, which is how I found this group that I'm in. Roll20. There's some apps. There's even a local game store that has a message board that you can join. And then, of course, there's pay sites. Through all of these, though, what I found is a lot of the cliches about D&D, came true. Most didn't make it past the fourth week or the fifth session for various reasons. It could be scheduling conflicts. It could be conflicts within the group. What I found probably, Colin, you spoiled me, is the DM style just wasn't, up to par. Like even on the pay ones, which I tried a few,
I was gonna ask.
it wasn't like, I was disappointed. Granted, it wasn't a huge sample size. It was just a couple of sessions, but I was hoping for more immersion, more preparedness. Like there was a total lack of preparedness. You'd be scheduled to play, let's say at 8 o'clock at night, and the game didn't start till like 8:30 or 8:40. Oh, I got to take a break. I got like it just really wasn't what I was expecting, and it was to be fair, a disappointment. Okay, fine. I got to play a little bit, and there were some fun moments, and I did learn some things from other players, and I even tested out some of the one D&D rule set through one of the games. Realized I didn't like a lot of it, but that's another show. So yeah, mostly there were a lot of free weekends where I didn't play, quite frankly. There were, though, some that I branched out, didn't cheat. We were on a break. And then this is sort of like a one-off and truly an exception, because normally I don't equate video games with D&D. But shout out to Baldur's Gate, because it is probably the closest thing I've seen to a D&D video game. But since I have a Mac, I only was able to start playing that like a month ago. So I wish I could have said I had it all throughout the entire 8-month break, but it was just the last little bit. But it did help. It's truly a fun game and incredibly immersive.
Nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's what I did.
One thing I'd like to add, Colin,
yeah,
before
go
you.
ahead.
I also kind of got a little fix. I started listening to the Dragonlance series, Dragons of Autumn,
Those
with
books.
my kids.
Mhm.
And
love
man, we just wrapped up the series, and they've got so many questions. Like, what's Raceland doing now? And I'm just like, oh yeah, you're gonna be reading
You're
all these books
hooked.
now. So
You're
that
hooked.
that also helped. That also
I
helped.
told you guys, I hope somebody does the Lord of the Rings treatment for the Dragonlance and does it
Oh
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love those books.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so
Yourself?
before I get in for myself, I just wanted to say hello to our super fan has showed up to say hello tonight. Uh,
Yay!
so thanks for
Oh,
joining
yeah.
us. For myself, I was working a lot, which was the reason that unfortunately we couldn't play for such a long period of time. But I mean, like you guys, I read a lot of D&D blogs. I love Sly Flourish's site, DM David. Listen to D&D podcasts. I haven't really found an actual play one that I got into. I tried a bunch. Um, but there's still like Mastering Dungeons. I really enjoy that. Sly Flourish's podcast is fantastic. Definitely my favorite right now. And watch a lot of D&D videos. YouTube is just a fantastic, near endless resort if you're a DM trying to learn how to DM and stuff like that. It's really really good. So I did not get to play any D&D, and so I was pretty happy to get back to this. So all right, so let's get into our topic for tonight and talk a little bit about what we all did to get ourselves ready for getting back into adventures in Emathan after so many months. Obviously, the biggest problems that you have coming back to a um, a campaign like Adventures in Emathan that is homebrewed is just trying to remember what was going on. Like there's no resources out there to easily get the information beyond what we may have available. So we'll start off. There's kind of two sides to the coin here. What the players have to do to get ready, and what the DM has to do to get ready for that. So let's start off with what players need to do to get ready for the campaign, and you can talk about a few things you might have done. You don't each one of us doesn't necessarily need to rattle them off. We can kind of build off of each other. So Barry, why don't you get us started there again?
Well, as a avid pen and pencil note taker, man, I scoured over my notes to try to get myself back on track. If you're notes, 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 like if you're going to be playing a serious long campaign, you need at least one person in your group to take notes. So, like I was reviewing names that were on the latest sheets, places that we'd been. I'll always try to jot kind of what we're up to on the paper somewhere, like what our task was, what our side quest was, and things like that. I took copious amounts of ayahuasca and spent a lot of time in the desert trying to find myself again. You know, I had to actually watch a session to remember what voices I was using because Nightingale's easy. I can just make up anything, but I couldn't remember where I had settled on Landis. But hopefully I carried it on. Not too bad.
And find what I remembered.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
yeah.
It was Landis and Nightingale for sure. Yeah, Max.
I found it really handy, and I encourage people to do this. Even it seems like fluff at the time, maybe, but like I just find them as like guiding principles for your character is to fill out the little things like the flaws and the bonds and their sort of ideals and stuff like that. They don't have to be cement and stone for your character, and you might alter them as your campaign progresses because characters grow.
Yeah.
But I just found it a really good way to be like to get back in the mindset of who Kogan is and just like, oh yeah. And then I obviously had a little bit of backstory stuff that I just refreshed on. It's like, oh yeah. And it just seemed to all come together. I wasn't like when we played, I felt right at home right away. I don't think
Yeah.
it takes a lot. Once your DM sets the world and you get back into the flow of things, it's like, oh yeah, we did this for a while. It doesn't really matter how long
Yeah,
ago.
it kind of starts to come back to you, right?
Yeah.
As every little bit triggers another little bit you remember.
Yeah.
Egan,
Yeah.
how about yourself?
I I think we are, fortunate because we have some resources that I don't think a lot of groups have, which is a recorded live stream. Watching that last session, going back to what Max and Barry said, I was right back in it. I was right back where I was 8.5 months ago. I didn't feel like I missed a beat because what was important for me was a couple of things. One, I wanted to review my characters, and outside the flaws, what can they do? Like, we have a couple of custom built stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah, I needed to review their inventory, their assets, their powers, their spells, to just get reacquainted with some of that stuff. Both my characters have custom built, classes, let's
Yeah.
call it. So it wasn't just a matter of, oh, that's a rogue, I know what to do. I had to, recall what we were doing. And I also think too, the benefit, if you have pen and paper, great, that's your resource. Or because we had the live streams, and not just that, we also had literally rewritten session recaps.
Yeah, the
It,
wiki.
yeah, go back to
Pretty
the
good.
why. What are you guys doing and why are you doing it? Um, we're not doing a canned adventure. It's a homebrew, so we don't have a beginning, middle, and end that you can kind of fall back on. This is all being played out. So where was Douglin? Where was his head? What was he doing? He just reunited with his family, but he's got a high price to pay. Get back into that mindset. And then, last Saturday, I'm with Max. I felt I hadn't missed a beat. It was seamless, in my opinion. Now, the show may not have come across that way,
Well,
but
I
I
mean,
certainly felt that way.
interacting with our user interface is another matter entirely. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? But like
yeah,
as far as like feeling comfortable with the characters we play, I think everyone was right at home. That's how it
yeah.
felt to
And
me.
I
Yeah.
I, I,
and
I
and I,
certainly felt that
yeah.
way. Yeah.
I
Our
would
our wiki, I
also,
think, is crucial for us to remember the world we're in.
oh my God, it was so helpful.
Yeah.
I would also recommend, and we did it, another session zero. I don't think we could have jumped right back without, and yes, we could have prepped and all that, but our session zero clarified a lot of stuff that maybe didn't hit the wiki, that maybe didn't, it wasn't in the last session. So, or if you didn't have a live stream, session zero part two was incredibly helpful for us, at least for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So just I'll just kind of review here a little bit some of the things I heard. So obviously reviewing your character sheet, that's pretty important. Egan, as to what you said, what can your player do? Just remembering spells, feats, all those things, because even with everybody taking that time, I did notice and expected we were a little slower on the trigger a lot of the times as you're going through and kind of remembering what it is
Yeah.
your
Ooh, I can
character
do
can do. Yeah.
that?
Max, I think you talked to this backstory, and uh, character motivations. When you go in and fill in all that information, if you do have that available on your character sheet, it's a big help to go back and kind of remember the mindset you were using to play that character. And like you said, it's not written in stone. It can change as the character evolves over time. Your character's voice, that's one that
That's
I
awesome.
I know for myself, the very first one, we get right into it, and I'm like, okay, Captain Murfitts, here we go. I think I remember how this goes, and session notes, Barry, you talked about it, big, big. I think that session notes are very helpful. They don't have to be hugely detailed, it can be names, places, just a little trigger for you to remember um, what was going
Yeah.
on at the time, and even what was in your head as next for the party, right? Um, so that's as a player. We do definitely, and I'll talk about this again in a second. We have a huge advantage in the fact that we record our sessions. They're all right there to watch. I know for myself, I watched, the 5 sessions leading up to where we were. Actually, to be honest, I actually listened to them on my drive back and forth. So I actually burned a audio version of all the sessions to listen to while I was driving back and forth, since I have an hour each way every day. Um, so now I'm going to get you to all switch hats, throw on your Dungeon Master hat, although, I was the one picking up this end. I'm sure you all have good stuff to add in here. So, Barry, from a Dungeon Master standpoint, what are some of the things
Um,
when you get back in?
you know, Egan had mentioned it. We're pretty fortunate that we record it, but also as a group, Colin, you always remind us to keep updating our wiki. And I think as a dungeon master, especially when you're creating the world as your party is playing it, for your party to keep track of that world for you in the wiki must be just invaluable. You remember a name and you're like, wow, I can't find my notes on it. I'll have a look at the wiki and a quick search the way it's set up and bang, you got all the information that the players would know. So that's all you really need to keep in mind is if that's what the players remember it as, that's how we're doing it going forward and off we go, right? So that must be invaluable for a DM to have that kind of a
Oh,
detailed.
absolutely. And I mean, I know, I'm sure from everybody's standpoint, having all the session recaps there and available to go
Yeah,
back to, so it's not something you hear once and then it's gone to the winds. You can always go back and reread, the recaps. That's a really good tool. Max?
Yeah, so I think if you've been gone for a long time and you're the DM and you're bringing people back into the fold, it's okay to have your first session back. You could just work in a low stakes side quest, almost like a one shot in your own world, just to kind of like bring your characters and your players back into the fold. I've found that as a DM, especially with a homebrew, I'm more immersed in my world than my players are because I'm always thinking about it, and it's always, you're the presenter of everything, right? So you're it. You are the
You're
world.
the center of your
Yeah,
universe, right?
exactly. But players need a bit of warm up and stuff like that to kind of get re-immersed, and I think it's a good way to just get the wheels turning again.
yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah,
So
Yep.
not like nothing that doesn't have to be completely arbitrary, just something that's,
not
simple
high stakes.
based
Yeah,
into what's been going on, like depending on how you left off and stuff like that. And maybe in your session zero, just talking about to piggyback off what Egan said earlier, is just you can be like, hey, this is where we ended, but it's been forever, and that's kind of a big leap for us right now. I'm gonna start with this, and then we can, you know what I mean? It's okay to have those conversations with your players, especially if
yeah,
you're not streaming live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't
Yeah.
necessarily need that direct continuity all the time. So um, that's kind of my recommendation. Ease
Yeah.
back in. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Egan?
It's not going to be too dissimilar to what Barry and Max said. I think a huge step is the session zero. I do love what you did with our first fight back.
Yeah,
It
that's
was
perfect.
meaningful, but not tragic. Obviously, it was a dream battle with somewhat consequences, but you were able to kind of just drop us in without long-term ramifications. Like had that been a battle in, let's call it the real world,
Lafferty be dead.
Lafferty would be dead.
I
Sorry,
think a
So
lot of us would be
spoiler, spoiler award.
yeah, but it was great because it was able to let us, incredible, well, obviously an OP battle, but it allowed us to stretch our legs,
yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
throw it all in there, screw it, we're gonna die, but let's go down fighting. So it gave us a chance. So I would say that is a great way to get the players back in, get the juices flowing.
And engaged in a meaningful way.
Yes,
Like,
like
what the
right
hell's
away.
going on? Like, why are
Yes,
we in this and stuff? So
right.
that's cool too. It's a
Yep.
good way to just
Yeah,
kickstart everything again.
Yeah, again, meaningful but not, tragic or, so I thought it was a great way to bring them back. I think with the session zero, and again, if you don't have the benefit of the wiki, then just going over again all the things we talked about, talk to your characters. Do you remember how you were thinking, where you're going? Because also there's the DM player relationship that not all the other players know. And that's a good time to refresh that. Okay, hey, remember we talked about this? In
You
fact,
still want to do that and things.
yeah, Colin, you asked us for,
Yeah. Short
six
term, long
things or
term
three
goals
things
before we
from
get
each.
going.
What are your motivations, short term, long term? I think it's a good chance to
Yeah.
revisit that as well. Maybe not in a group setting. Maybe have a little sidebar with the players, so they're because
It's
we
fun
got to
for
have some
surprises.
mystery
Yeah.
between each other. I think it adds to everything,
Yeah, for
adds
sure.
to the flavor. So, but I got to tell you guys, if you whoever's listening, if you have a chance to do a wiki, not just the session recaps. I've gone to NPCs and go, oh yeah, that's who that is. Like, because
Yeah.
we put little descriptions of
Yeah.
what they were. It's like it's really an incredible resource. So, but yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, that wiki is fantastic. And so the way that I kicked it off was sort of to what you were talking there, Max.
Mm.
I wanted us to jump right into something where you could flex all your character muscles without a lot of potential,
Consequences.
yeah, without a lot of consequences. Exactly,
Tragedy,
right?
yeah.
But still, I wanted it to be important to the
Yeah,
story, not just.
absolutely.
And
Right.
yeah, so I thought that would be a good way to, if you need a reminder of what your character can do, it's going to have to do it right now.
Oh God,
So
Lafferty's first what do I do? It was so bad.
yeah, and those creatures didn't give you a whole lot of time to think about it.
No,
So,
locked us
Yeah.
down pretty
Well, Egan quickly reminded himself, yeah, Lafferty's not a frontline guy.
No,
but here I
as
am,
he's being ragdolled, it was so
torn
bad.
in two by
Yeah.
two of the creatures. Yeah. So, for myself, and definitely pulling off of some of the things you guys said, one of the first things I did, I actually reviewed all of your character sheets
good. Hmm.
to remind me what all of you guys were capable of doing. Went back to, like, we've had several times now from when you first submitted your backstories to me, and then, I several times during the campaign, I've asked, what are your character goals right now? To watch as, because the reason I asked that, it gives me the opportunity to understand how your character is evolving for you. When I ask you what your goals are, and you say, oh, it's this, this, and this, I look at what your goals were last time, and that helps me see how your character is evolving in your head and how you want to change the way they're playing. So I went back through all of that. As I said, I had the time, so I went back and listened to a lot of hours, 20 hours of our play, and I loved it. Guys, we're funny. I'm just gonna say we're funny.
Sure, yeah.
It was
Well,
great to listen to, and so yeah, I mean, finding out what the character sheets, finding out what the players can do, what their backstories are. Lots of review of the session notes. Written notes are great. I keep all of my notes in a OneNote, so it's searchable, and I can link stuff to other stuff, and that helps me a lot. Recordings are even better, which we have the wiki. We've already talked about it. It's fantastic, having all of that available.
which for other people could be in the form of a shared Google Doc.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It
Right?
doesn't
It
have to
doesn't
be
have to
anything too
be.
fancy.
No.
It could just be a single document, Max, like you're saying, that you keep adding on to, right?
Yeah.
With information from the last session. The and we've talked about this already. Having another session zero, I think, is vital. You got to get back together, remind each other how you want to play, talk about how the last session went, and it kicks everybody's memory kind of back in gear. Like you were talking about, Max, how everything just kind of started to come back to you as we played. That really helps with that there. Again, I asked you guys for the short and long term goals. Because you've had 8 months to think about your characters. At some point you might have thought about them and, oh, you know what, I really want to try and do this with that character or that with that character, something a little different. Um, Making for the DM, make sure you've got a really detailed recap for the first session back, right? To get everybody. I used everybody's full names and everything I was describing in the recap to help jog everybody's memory. And then once you're into a session, um, just spending extra time in the first session on everybody's names and the places and the things like that. Again, this is just to get people jogging people's memories about.
Well,
Um,
when you got as many fans as us, you want to bring them along with you on this journey of rediscovery, right?
yes,
JD.
and then the my last 2 cents worth here around this is, um, just remember that the first session back's going to be rough, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it just helps to have that mindset. For us, Fantasy Grounds changed a little bit from the last time we had all used it. We hadn't used it a lot in the last 8 months. So just remembering how, some of the things worked in Fantasy Grounds. Although, to be honest with you, I thought that part was better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, just a couple little things on like just skill dynamics. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah.
One thing I want to throw in here that we do now, it's not so much for long-term breaks, but our character chats that we do over Discord
Yeah.
is a great way to keep you in the mindset of the game. Like I don't know if anybody understands what I'm talking about here, but in between sessions where we have downtime in the session, say travel time or sitting around a campfire, out of game, during the week when we're all got a second in between work or whatever, we'll have dialogue between our characters as our characters. And that's a really great way to keep yourself in the game, and a great way for characters to build history together and connections and things like that. So that like it might only work for short term. We didn't do it over the 8+ months, but if you got 2-3 weeks breaks, it's a great way to keep everybody still interested. I think some of the rules we said is you don't create uh new events. You only talk about things that had happened so that the DM isn't trying to catch up on what you guys have decided is happening. It's
Yeah.
just, the idle chit chat that your characters would have. And I find it's a great way for us to build, relationships in the game that you don't have time for when you're playing. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, it absolutely, it's a good one. We have it on our personal Discord channel for us. I mean, again, lots of different ways you can do it. We have a channel on our Discord which is in-game, in-game
Character
chat.
thoughts.
Yeah, character when you're in character on that particular channel. And yeah, that's definitely a good one. And like you said, Barry, when there's, if you're a group that maybe only gets together once a month or something, that's a great way to keep the campaign fresh in everybody's mind. Any last thoughts? We'll go around. Barry, any last thoughts on the topic of the day?
I don't recommend 9-month breaks in between sessions. It really makes continuity hard to keep, going. But, if you do have to take breaks because, life happens between it, be forgiving of the people within your group. Don't hold grudges. We all have lives outside of our D&D lives. Stuff like this happens. Just do your best that when you do get the opportunities to play, you make that time for it, and you put in the same amount of work and commitment that your dungeon master is. Colin puts in a ton of work, and I think he appreciates the fact that we as characters are always trying to do almost, as much work as we can from our ends of it. We're trying to let our characters develop. We're taking notes. We're being attentive. We're not, he's not constantly having to tell us what we're doing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
things like that. So,
We're
it,
engaged.
yeah,
Yes.
re-engage quickly and put in the effort, and you'll be rewarded. It'll be a great game.
Yeah. Max?
I think above all, if you manage to get together after a long break, celebrate that because you're like, you know, maybe a 2 percentile of D&D players and groups. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's funny because I was just thinking about this. This advice is for the unicorns out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what
Stick
I
with it.
mean?
Yeah.
It really is. But I think if you're been a part of groups that fall apart after the long break, but maybe have had like long sessions, this could maybe be some fuel to help uh reignite and get back together and understand like, oh well, we can just get back together and play again. It doesn't have to be a big deal, and you know what I
Yep.
mean? We play. So
That's
yeah.
great advice, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the reference to a unicorn. Unfortunately, it really is. You know, in a lot of the stuff that I was reading in that over time, getting the right bunch of people together for a long period of time really is max a unicorn. You know,
Yeah.
Oh man.
and I think
Yeah.
Egan, you
You can
had
attest to it for
yeah,
sure.
you can attest to that fact, right? Egan, last thoughts?
It's technically not cheating when you're on.
Yeah.
Okay, Ross, we were on a break. Okay.
Exactly. But no, it's if you love something, set it free. And if if it's true love,
If
it'll
it
come.
doesn't come back, hunt it
And
down
we're
and kill
back.
it.
I love
Down
you
and kill.
guys. No, it's true. I am so happy to be back, and I think it's a testament to the group that we have that we are back. To everybody involved, led by our DM, but also three, I think, very committed players that love this game. And that the fact that we were able to, let's say, survive, if that's the right word, eight
Simmer.
Yeah.
months.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it
I
is
love
a
you too, man.
Well, I just never felt like we were gonna fall apart,
No, and
honestly.
I didn't either. Nope.
no. And for the record, I never played Saturday night unless it was with you guys. I swear.
Oh wow.
So I would refuse because those are usually the longer term games, right? And I'm like,
Sure.
no, Saturday night, sorry. I'll play with Max and Barry on a little side one shots or whatnot, but I looked around, but not
Nothing
that bad.
serious.
Yeah, nothing serious.
Nice.
A Friday night fling, you know. Yeah, awesome to be back. So happy.
Yeah, it is great to be back.
All right. Well, I think with that, we'll put a wrap for episode 18 of Roll by Rolls Tavern Talk. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed tonight's topic, and anyone that gets an opportunity to watch. Tavern Talks occur the Thursday after each of our Saturday night adventures in Emathan sessions. So our next session is scheduled for Saturday, December 16th. For anyone watching on YouTube, please support us by making sure you like our videos and subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell icon to be alerted when the next session occurs. So, guys, hopefully you've all remembered to end our episode. We'll offer a cheers.
Oh yeah.
The
Cheers.
tears of my players.
We had some last session.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us in the tavern, and we hope that you can join us again next time. Thanks, guys.
Good to see you, super fan. Woo!
All right. Have a good night.